Welcome back to the Cossy Arsenal podcast. My name is Cossy. Welcome back to a brand new video. This is the latest Arsenal news and transfer news as well. What is a day in an Arsenal transfer window this summer without Ricardo Calafiori updates and without the German mystery player updates? So in this video, we dive into what's going on with Ricardo Calafiori. Dimarzio has given us a really wonderful update because it's a deal that the player really wants. And Dimarzio says that both clubs will reach an agreement. At the moment, they do not have one. We'll be talking about the German mystery player. According to Team News and Ticks, he's a forward player that can play in all positions on the forward line. And I think that's why Arsenal are looking at, a player that maybe allows them to spend once, or rather than spending on a winger and a striker as well. So they're looking for someone who can play a bit of a Gabriel Jesus, someone can play as a center forward, and someone can play as a winger as well. But most importantly today, Team News and Ticks has said that Arsenal are expected to go back and sign Bruno Guimaraes. They've been given positive indications by the camp of the player, and they also believe the deal can be done this summer. There is still interest in signing two midfielders at Arsenal, and probably Merino and Bruno Guimaraes. That would be a good window. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel as well. Let's have a talk. Let's talk about it. Let's start off with the big story on Bruno Guimaraes because it's the fresh update. The rest of the others are a bit of additional updates. But the Bruno Guimaraes one has been dead for quite some time. And personally, and all of us thought this is a deal that was 100% off. However, today Team News and Ticks has come out and said this is a deal that for people inside Arsenal, for people at Arsenal, is not totally dead. They are still in communication with the representatives of the player. They're still in communication with the player, and they are being given signals and signs that this is a deal they can still do in terms of affording the player, but also in terms of the player wanting a move. Now, Guimaraes wants UEFA Champions football. Newcastle at the moment they do not have UCL, and that's a massive L for them. That's a massive disadvantage for him. I don't think it's going to be an easy deal, like it's being said, because with Team News it says that Arsenal at the moment feel like they're confident. They feel like the deal can be done, and they feel like they feel like anytime they can approach Newcastle and agree a deal. However, I think Newcastle have two options here. One, they either keep their project going with the likes of Guimaraes, with the likes of Isak, and I don't think Bruno Guimaraes is going to force his move out of Newcastle. It doesn't make any sense. If he was going to force his move out of Newcastle, then he would have done that in June, knowing well that he has a release clause in his contract. So he didn't do that. Kept quiet. The release clause expired in June. Now, reports are coming out that Arsenal might bid for, Bruno Guimaraes. My understanding of this situation is this: if Arsenal are going to sign Guimaraes, it's going to be below 100 million pounds. Yes, that release clause was there. It was 100 million, but Arsenal are never going to pay it. Why would you sign Bruno Guimaraes for 100 million? I think he's a good player. I think he's a top player, but he's not a 100 million midfielder. I think if you get him for 75 million, that's a good deal. If you get him for 80 million, that is a good deal for both Newcastle, the player, and Arsenal. But above 80 million, that's a little bit of an overpay. That's a little bit of overrating Bruno Guimaraes. He's not yet in the levels of the Paul Pogbas of this world to cost above 90 million, to cost above 80 million, in my opinion. Humbly, he's 80 million. So Arsenal are being given signals that, of course, the interest was reported right from May, from The Athletic, from Fabrizio, that Arsenal like Bruno Guimaraes, but there was not any kind of concrete news coming out that Arsenal are preparing a bid or Arsenal are even planning to bid because Newcastle came out and said, we don't want to sell any of our key players. Therefore, we're going to sell the likes of Yankuba Minte, we're going to sell the likes of Anderson, and we're going to deal with FFP in that way. And that's what they did, and I thought it was smart. But if Arsenal really think not signing Onana is not the solution, or signing Onana is not the solution, signing Bruno Guimaraes is not the solution, signing Joao Neves is not the solution, then in their mind they must have a player that is ready to replace Partey. And I won't be surprised if that player is Bruno Guimaraes. So can the deal be done? In my opinion, I'm not going to gaslight you people. I'm not going to lie to you. No. I think it's a very difficult deal. I think Newcastle right now are looking at that horizon. They're looking at 30 days before the start of the Premier League, and they're asking themselves, if we sell him, who do we replace him with? How do we replace him? And why would they sell him in the first place if they have built a midfield alongside, around him, and the likes of Sandro Tonali, who will be coming back very soon, and the likes of, Joe Willock and a couple of other players. So I don't see him move. I don't see this as an easy deal. It actually reminds me of one of those deals that Arsenal always tried to do, but they knew it was never going to happen. For me, it's a deal that Arsenal really like to do. I can see Mikel maybe die on this one. I can see Edu die on this one, and then it doesn't happen in the end. I don't see how Newcastle changed their mind straight away from boom, we are willing to sell, to, we are not willing to sell, to boom, now we are willing to sell for less than 100 million. Unless someone is saying Arsenal is going to pay 100 million for Bruno Guimaraes. If that is the case, well and good. We go ahead, we pay 100 million, we get the player. But if you're not paying 100 million, Newcastle, they're selling to you a player they have already said they are not willing to sell. In my opinion, I don't see that happen. Now, let's talk about Di Marzio and Ricardo Calafiori. Couple of updates is given us on Ricardo Calafiori. First and foremost, Ricardo Calafiori has told Bologna they should agree a deal with Arsenal since he doesn't want to join any other club. It is only Arsenal for him. That's number one. Secondly, according to Fabrizio Romano, he keeps waiting and waiting for an agreement to be struck between Arsenal and Bologna. And both clubs are optimistic still, despite the fact that they have wasted a whole week, that they will get the deal done. Arsenal are willing to call Bologna's bluff, and Bologna are saying they want that 50 million to be paid in fixed fees and much of that money to be paid up front. That is where we are. According to Di Marzio, next week is going to be crucial. Next week FC. Thank you. So Di Marzio is not a journalist that I trust. Okay, I think he's a reliable source when it comes to Italian news, but I don't like him. That I don't want to lie. I do trust him because when it comes to Italian stories, he's got his credibility built in. I can't lie. I just don't like him. I just think he blabbers a lot at times, and at times he gives information that he knows is not yet there, right? He predicts information lots of the time. That's what I don't like about Di Marzio. But let's talk about his update because it's very important. First and foremost, Calafiori wants only Arsenal. This is what I don't understand. Calafiori wants only Arsenal, or it's only Arsenal that are willing to sit in negotiations for 2 bloody weeks with Bologna, knowing very well that all other clubs are out of the race and they cannot do the deal. I think it's not about Ricardo Calafiori wanting Arsenal only. It's about Ricardo Calafiori not having any other clubs interested in him. So most of the clubs thought the market value of the player, this summer would be around 35 million euros to 40 million euros. And if it wasn't for the euros, that would have been the price. And Arsenal feel the same way as well. However, Arsenal have decided we are going to, walk out of our zone, which Mikel Arteta called adjusting to the market and adapting. So Mikel says we are going to adjust. We are going to adjust to the price. Yes, it's had a good euros. We are going to throw in an extra 10 million euros in bonuses. And Bologna are saying, well, if you're willing to give us 10 million euros in bonuses, you might as well give us that money right now. There is a reason as to why we are adding bonuses to this guy's deal. He's a guy that is riddled with injuries. He's an amateur, 22-year-old player that is willing and going to develop into a good player. But at the moment, you're selling us Maldini. You're selling us Carlos Puyol. He's not yet Carlos Puyol. He's not yet Maldini. He's not yet great. So don't sell to us greatness. So it's positive when people say, and when Di Marzio says he wants Arsenal only, because that gives Arsenal enough time, ample time to agree a deal, and knowing that there are no other clubs that are going to come in and hijack the deal. So Mikel has done a good job talking to the player, locking him down. So let's wait and see whether these two can agree a deal. So secondly, the most important part here is that DiMarzio says both clubs will, actually he says are not optimistic, but he says will agree a deal. Next week is going to be crucial. The reason as to why both clubs are going to agree a deal here is that Bologna don't have a choice. I've seen some reports saying that Bologna are saying if he comes back from holiday and a deal has not been struck, they're going to call him back into training. That is total crap. That is absolute bullshit. They know they're not going to get more money in Ricardo Calafiori next summer because there are no Euros. So they'll have to wait until 2026 to sell him if they're really saying we want to sell him at 50 million. They have to wait until the World Cup. He has another good tournament. They pray that he has another good tournament and then try to sell him again. So I don't see them call him back for training, for preseason, and I don't see Mikel Arteta start preseason without Ricardo Calafiori. It's as simple as that. So I will call their bluff, and Arsenal are also willing to call their bluff, right? Arsenal are willing to sit patiently, wait until these guys, agree, to let us go. Until these guys agree to let the player go. Honestly, I think Arsenal have given them a good deal. 45 million euros plus 5 million euros in add-ons. That's a good deal. It should be a take it or leave it. I should be reporting on Monday that Arsenal have walked away or Arsenal are willing to walk away. We should show our pride in these negotiations. This is not Maldini. This is not Saliba. We're not buying Saliba. We're buying Ricardo Calafiori, who could be the next Maldini, who could be the next Saliba, who could be the next top centre-back. At the moment, he's not a top centre-back just yet. So next week is going to be crucial. And I think next week's ultimatum works more for Bologna than it does for Arsenal. Because next week, imagine, tomorrow is a Sunday, 14th of July. Arsenal have done 0 signings in terms of sensible transfers. Because for me, Raya, that's not a sensible transfer. It was always going to happen. Nuno Tavares, well done, good. But, he was going to go anyway. Lokonga, he was going to go anyway. El Neni was going to go anyway. And Cedric Soares, they were going to go anyway. And the kids in the in the academy that we've let go of, we shouldn't have in the first place. We lost a lot of money on them. 0 coins made. So in terms of Arsenal's real transfer party starting, I expect at least one good signing next summer. And that should be Ricardo Calafiori. Even if it's not Ricardo Calafiori, we should make at least 2 good signings before preseason, before the 21st, before next Sunday comes in. It's crazy how Man United are about to get 3 deals done for Ugarte, for Delete, for Zaxi, who is already done. And we are still struggling with some nonchalant club that really wants 50 million in an overrated player at the moment. I am not really happy with them, honestly. I'm not really happy with them. So they want the deal to be done on their own terms, Bologna. They're saying the deal should be done at our own terms. And our terms are sell-on percentage in the future, 50 million fixed, much of that paid up front, and bonuses included. I don't think Arsenal should be even listening to that nonsense. Like, if we can't, I wonder who's negotiating this deal, because Bologna are making crazy demands that are non-justifiable. Honestly, non-justifiable. So that's where we are when it comes to Bologna, Calafiori, and DiMarzio. Yep. Now, Team News and Texas say that the German player, the German mystery player, is a forward who can play as a left winger, right winger, and striker. And that's what Arsenal are looking at. So Arsenal are looking at a player who can literally occupy all those positions. I think the psychology that Arsenal are using here is that if we sign a player that can play in all these positions, we can still accommodate Gabriel Jesus, we can still accommodate Kai Havertz. Because if you bring in a player like Victor Gyökeres, Jesus is no longer a striker, Nketiah is no longer a striker, and Kai Havertz is no longer a striker. If you bring in a Gyökeres or an Osimhen, all these fake strikers, all these scam strikers that we are trying to lie to the world with, that we have strikers, they are definitely no longer strikers. So I think this is a move for Arsenal to avoid going, we need a striker, let's get one, and we need a Saka replacement, let's get one. My fear with a versatile player, like just versatile, like Trossard, is at times they do much, which is good, and at times they do nothing, honestly. So I'm not saying Trossard does nothing. No, not really. What I'm trying to say is if you bring in a player who plays in 3 positions, you might actually use him as a backup for Saka, and it doesn't work well. And then you might use him as a striker, and it doesn't work well. And you might use him as a winger, and a left winger, and it doesn't work well, right? You're just bringing him to be used in different positions. I would prefer Arsenal to sign a winger, and then Arsenal to go and sign a striker. That is what we should be doing. That is what I would love Arsenal to do this summer. But the German mystery player is still doing his mysteries. And this week, we don't expect the mystery guy to land. So let's wait next week.